Today, we're going to talk about the part of video games no one thinks about. Before the sword, before the music, before the impossible final boss speech, there's just a human being in a room, building a world out of absolutely nothing. And when they do it right, we just might be able to call them a hero. A spoiler warning ahead of time. There are spoilers for the following games in this video. I'll make sure to timestamp these throughout the video. And if you don't want to watch the information, you can pause it or skip away.
Yeshua's every waking moment was spent trying to shoulder the burden that you and the Phoenix and the Duchy foisted on him. That's why I became his shield. To help bear the weight. But what did you do? You betrayed your own blood and surrendered your son to his fate!
That isn't a movie. That's a guy in a spandex suit covered in tracking dots, standing in a dead quiet room. No set, no props. There's no co-stars to look at. It's just him, a microphone, and a script that demands he rip his own throat out to make you feel something. If you think you know how hard this is, try it. Seriously, try it. In my first acting class, the teacher handed me a poorly written jeans commercial script. She went around the room, said an emotion. Your goal was to take a few seconds to get into character and perform that emotion on the spot. You read the script in that emotion. Now imagine doing that for a script that's nearly 2 million words, with 174 hours of cutscenes. The kind of workload Larry and Studios gave the cast of Baldur's Gate 3. Most of these actors don't see anything. Unless you're doing dubbing work, most video game actors have two things to go off. Sometimes a picture of a character and notes from the director. That's it. They have to build a life out of thin air and then unleash every ounce of that emotion into a cold microphone. But here's the kicker. Those performances now rival anything on multi-million-dollar Hollywood sets. I'll go to war for this. For decades, we were told that film is the king of acting, yet voice actors have only been a major part of games for about 30 years. And the best of them are already standing shoulder to shoulder with screen legends. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why video game acting didn't just catch up to Hollywood, it pushed the craft forward. To understand how far we've come in video game voice acting, let's take a quick peek back in time.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Only man himself can control its fate. You're nothing.
Ah! What am I fighting for?
Gee, it sure is boring around here.
My boy, this piece is what all true warriors strive for.
Funny, right? For the longest time, the traditional film world treated video game acting like a joke. And honestly, in the 90s, they had pretty good evidence. Because for a while, voice acting in a video game basically meant find the nearest human, put them in front of a microphone, hand them a translated script, and say, make it sound dramatic. And what we got were things like this.
A strange meteor has fallen to Earth just a while ago.
I'm almost finished. The battery will be charged in 10 minutes. You must recover all the energy immediately, Mega Man.
But where is Dr. Wily?
That's a good question.
What the?
Mega Man, you must go after him. We don't know who he is, and it's dangerous to leave him alone.
Am I alive?
Yes.
But here's the insane part. In less than 30 years, games went from that to this.
Hey. A little embarrassed as to what I had to trade to get it, but it's not bad.
I had Seth under control.
Yeah, I know.
And you need to stop harassing Jesse about my patrols. I'll see you around.
Yep.
That jump should not be possible. Hollywood had a century to build its acting language. Games had weird translations, tiny budgets, and actors often performing scenes without fully understanding the game they were even in. Yet somewhere along the way, something changed. Game acting stopped being a novelty. It stopped being just voice work. It became one of the strangest, hardest, most emotionally exposed forms of acting in modern entertainment. Because a great performance is not just an actor reading dialogue, It's an actor building an invisible world around themselves. They stand in a gray room with a camera rig, dots on their face, tape on the floor, and another actor trying to believe in the same imaginary reality. Somehow, out of that emptiness, they have to create grief. Modern game actors are not just performing lines, they're performing belief. It's pure imagination. They're standing in the void and making us see a world that isn't there yet. And when it works, the result doesn't feel fake. It feels like a real person. And that's why this scene hurts. It has nothing to do with graphics and everything to do with the human anchor, the performance of the actor. Film can make you care about a character. A great actor can devastate you with one look. A great director can trap you inside a close-up until you feel like you're watching someone's soul collapse in real time. But games have a different weapon because they don't just ask you to watch. They ask you to participate. That changes everything. When you watch a movie character suffer, there's always a tiny layer of distance between you and them. You're the witness. In a game, though, you're not just watching Arthur Morgan, you're making him get on the horse again. You're choosing to keep going even when his body is coughing and breaking down. You're begging the story to stop, but you're still complicit in it. That's the part movies cannot replicate. A film can show you a man dragging himself through grief. A game can actually make you physically drag him. Once your body becomes part of the scene, the emotional contract you have changes. You're no longer just saying, what is this character feeling? You're asking, why am I still making them do this? That's why certain game characters attach themselves to you differently. You didn't just meet them. You traveled as them. You failed as them. You got lost with them. You made terrible choices with them. You stood in quiet rooms and did nothing because the game gave you control. And for once, the most human thing you could do was to not move. That's the secret power of video game performance. The actor gives the character a soul. The player gives that soul a body. And when those two things line up, when the performance, the writing, the animation, the controller, and your own guilt all point in the same direction, the character stops feeling like someone you watched, and they feel like someone you carried along a journey. Let's look at the actual case files of the people operating inside the volume. Ben Starr's performance as Clive Rossfield in Final Fantasy XVI isn't just good vocal delivery. During the middle of that multi-year shoot, his father passed away, and his grandfather passed away too, within a few days of each other actually. Instead of locking that trauma away in a box, Ben funneled his real-world bereavement straight into his acting.
My dad died in the making of this video game, and there's a lot of loss that Clive goes through, and I'm sorry to get heavy, but it's true, but it's amazing how much this game allowed me to process that loss and channel that loss into something good and creative.
I'm sorry. I failed you. Take your hands off my brother!
Help me! Help me, Clive!
Joshua! Stop it! Stop it! I swore I would protect him! Please! Please! Stop it! Joshua. Look at me, Joshua. Open your eyes! Open your eyes, Damien! Why? Why did you do this? Joshua! Joshua!
When you play that game, it doesn't feel like you're watching a digital character come to life. It feels like Clive Rossfield is real, like he's a breathing human being, and Ben Starr just happened to be voicing him. That isn't acting, that's a psychological transfusion. Look at Christopher Judge as Kratos in the God of War reboot. He didn't just step into a booth and do a gruff, angry Spartan voice. Kratos became his outlet for his own human regrets.
There's nowhere you can hide, Spartan. Put as much distance between you and the truth as you want. It changes nothing. Pretend to be everything you are not. Teacher, husband, father. But there is one unavoidable truth you will never escape. You cannot change. You will always be a monster.
I know.
A lot of this performance, for me, is a love letter to my kids. It's an apology. Yeah.
And if you want the ultimate proof of void acting, look at Melina Juergens in Hellblade. She wasn't even a professional actor, she was the studio's video editor. They strapped a camera rig directly to her skull, stuck her in an empty gray room, and told her to physically act out crippling psychosis and sheer terror.
In the head of his corpse lies the seat of his soul. So you must carry his vessel to bring him back home.
She didn't have any co-stars around here. There was no beautiful sets. It was just her, hyperventilating on a foam mat, pulling raw panic out of thin air. It won her a BAFTA. Finally, look at the sheer mathematical scale of what Neil Newbin did as Asterion in Baldur's Gate 3. For reference, a standard 120-page Hollywood script runs between like 15 to 20,000 words. Baldur's Gate 3 had a script packed with nearly 2 million words and about 174 hours of cinematic runtime. Again, for reference, that's more than double the entire broadcast history of Game of Thrones. Because it's a branching engine, Neil couldn't just record a linear story. He had to hold thousands of different relationship values and branching algorithmic paths in his head simultaneously, because he needed to ensure emotional continuity. You pick one thing in a scene and you get one reaction. You pick another one and you get a devastating outcome, and you need to pour emotion into that scene. He spent 4 years in that room, sometimes to the point where his physical body gave way under the strain.
I literally left my blood on the floor in this game, as well as having the best time. Even the day I burnt out wasn't a bad day. It was just, I'd reached the limit of my stamina for that particular period of time, and I had to just reset for a couple of days.
He even stepped in to perform a chaotic mess of emergency capture lines for other minor roles, just to help save the developer's timeline. That is a cognitive and physical workload that few traditional stars have ever faced. For a long time, the traditional film establishment treated this entire medium like a joke. There was a massive ingrained snobbery that acting in a tight lycra suit with reflective nodes was somehow lesser than standing in period wardrobe on a physical stage. But that hierarchy is completely vanishing. Big name performers are now crossing into games Because the narrative carrying capacity is simply deeper. When Clair Obscur Expedition 33 launched, it became one of the most nominated games in awards history and attracted actors like Andy Serkis, Ben Starr, and Charlie Cox.
I am not letting Mael die out here. I'm taking her home.
What? No, we have a mission!
Oh, fuck the mission! Fuck the mission, Lune! What are we gonna do, huh? Tell me. What are we gonna do? We're gonna take down the Paintress, just the three of us? My gun and your sparks?
I didn't take you for a coward.
I'm not a coward.
You swore the oath. When one falls, we continue.
Yes, I know.
When one falls. When one falls. Not if, when. We knew not all of us would make it, but we continue. As long as even one of us stands, our fight is not over.
But I'm not afraid to fight, it's just Mael,
Mael swore the same oath!
I know that!
She chose her life. You and I... Come on, we always said the future of Lumiere is more important than
any individual life, yes.
Do you still believe that? Do you still believe that? Do you?
I hope I do.
Fuck the mission. Really?
Sorry.
Major award shows are adding more categories to recognize performances in games, and actors have publicly called for dedicated motion capture awards. Even Serkis has argued the performance capture work should be acknowledged alongside traditional acting, not hidden away. This is coming from the guy who was Schmeagol, who was Golem, who was Caesar, and of course, Renoir. The shift isn't just about prestige, it's about labor. Back in October 2016, video game actors executed a historic SAG-AFTRA strike that lasted 340 days and didn't end until September 2017. SAG-AFTRA, if you didn't know, is the union for voice actors. They weren't fighting for vanity perks. They went to war because of efforts. Efforts are hours of screams, death rattles, combat grunts. It left performers with permanent vocal cord damage. SAG-AFTRA actually had to file a formal complaint with California's Division of Occupational Safety and Health. They argued that the sessions should be treated as hazardous working environments. The eventual agreement introduced secondary payments and commitments to address vocal stress. When your job requires you to physically break your throat to make a scene feel real, you aren't just reading lines, you're inhabiting them. We're staring down an immediate future filled with procedurally generated content. The ones who don't care about the art want to automate everything. They want to replace the beautiful, volatile mess of the human soul with a clean, pre-chewed AI prompt, but they're hitting a massive wall. See, you can copy textures and synthesize a cadence, but you can't automate reality. You can't fake the data of a human being standing in a blank room, tearing their life open in front of an array of infrared cameras. Traditional cinema can only ask you to watch a performance from the dark. Video games demand that you inhabit it. The most honest stories aren't being captured on multi-million-dollar sound stages anymore. They're being manufactured inside stark gray boxes with a plastic controller in your hand. If there is anyone left on Earth who still thinks this is just cartoon voiceover work, they haven't been paying attention. We're watching actors pour their actual souls into these characters to make them feel alive. So the next time you boot up a game and grip those plastic handles, take a second to realize what you're actually interacting with. You are directly connecting to a real human being who stood in a dead quiet room and ripped their own heart out so you wouldn't have to feel alone. The credits rolled, but the feeling stayed. Stay crispy.
You are a toy! You are
aren't the real Buzz Lightyear. You're an action figure. You are a child's plaything.
You are a sad, strange little man.
Everyone says Pixar is completely dead, that they lost their magic forever. This is completely false. In our last video, we covered their untouchable golden era. Pixar didn't fall off. We just moved the goalposts to the moon. Luca is an awesome movie, but it isn't Monsters, Inc. Turning Red is genuinely hilarious, but nothing will ever beat WALL-E in my eyes. We constantly judge new films against impossible ghosts, but what if none of this is an accident? What if Pixar planned this massive shift all along? What if they stopped writing for us on purpose? Today, we expose the real reason the story's changed. Oh, and on a quick personal note, my son recently found out I run a YouTube channel, and he wanted to do a character voice, so watch until the end, and you can hear my son's first try. For 20 years, the formula was beautifully simple. Every single hero needed a physical monster. Woody, for example, faced a sadistic kid. Flick went to war with a terrifying dictator, Giant Grasshopper. We knew exactly who to hate, and then Pixar quietly executed their most valuable asset. They completely murdered the bad guy. Pete Docter took control of the entire studio. He realized something deeply unsettling about modern audiences. A physical monster? It's simply not scary anymore. The real monsters are already inside our heads. So, The Invisible Enemy was born. Inside Out 2 just made $1 billion. The villain wasn't a monster. It was a literal clinical anxiety attack. But this psychological pivot made people furious. We actually saw this exact rage on our own channel. In the last video about Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, our comment section lost their minds. People were screaming about Lupita Nyong'o playing Helena Troy. They were furious about the lack of Greek armor. People violently hate when you change their childhood myths. Pixar faced this exact same brutal internet backlash. They stopped making simple good versus evil adventures, and they started animating specific, diverse, uncomfortable human experiences. And the internet? Well, at least at first, they completely turned on them. Armies of angry adults review-bombed the new movies. They called the modern era totally ruined. But all this loud internet drama was just a distraction. It completely hit a much darker, fatal weak point. Because while the internet was screaming in the comments, the Disney boardroom was planning a brutal betrayal. The real villain was not on the screen. It was sitting inside the Disney boardroom. In 2020, CEO Bob Chapek made a ruthless decision. He desperately needed to build the Disney Plus streaming service, and he needed a massive sacrifice to make it work. He looked at Pixar's legendary animation studio. He saw hundreds of brilliant artists bleeding for their craft. They were building $200 million masterpieces, films like Soul, Luca, and Turning Red. These movies were explicitly designed for massive theater screens, but Chapek did not care about cinematic art. He only cared about monthly subscriber metrics, so he weaponized Pixar's entire creative catalog. He dumped these premium movies straight onto the internet. He didn't even charge an extra fee for them. This is a brutal retail tactic called a loss leader. You give away a massive, expensive product for completely free. It temporarily stops angry parents from canceling their subscriptions. But this short-term greed completely destroyed Pixar's theatrical future. Disney accidentally trained the entire planet that Pixar movies are just cheap household utilities. Why pay $60 for a family movie night? You could just wait 30 days and watch it on the couch. The single corporate mandate crippled the animation studio. It totally shattered employee morale across the entire campus. Animators watched their beautiful work treated like disposable television. And when Pixar finally returned to physical movie theaters, the box office results were catastrophically bad. But the fans didn't blame the Disney boardroom. They blamed the new generation of storytellers. So the internet blamed the artists. Millennials grew up with the perfect photorealistic toys and bugs. We wanted massive external adventures. Instead, we got movies about puberty and panic attacks. Fans pointed at the new bouncy character designs. The internet immediately labeled the animation as lazy and cheap. Angry adults called it the dreaded bean mouth style. We asked why Pixar forgot how to make movies for us, but here's the hardest pill to swallow. They didn't forget. They just stopped writing for you. Pixar's no longer targeting 30-year-olds with nostalgia. They're explicitly writing for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. These kids are growing up in a highly volatile world. They do not want a sanitized traditional hero's journey. They actively seek out reflections of their own mental health. The animators? Yeah, unfortunately they knew exactly what they were doing. They actually had to invent entirely new 3D software in the process. They built it just to create those wild anime-style expressions. It wasn't lazy, it was actually a massive technical evolution, and it worked perfectly. The younger generation felt understood. While older fans were complaining on the internet, Gen Z was quietly preparing to break every box office record, which brings us to the biggest lie of this entire era. The haters say Pixar is completely dead. They point to Lightyear bombing at the box office, but the cold math tells us a different story. Elemental had the absolute worst opening weekend ever. The internet declared it a massive flop. But then an anomaly happened. The new target audience actually started showing up to the movie theaters. Gen Z told all their friends. The movie just simply refused to die while it was in theaters. And then, quietly, it made nearly $500 million. Then Inside Out 2 came out and completely shattered the earth. It generated $1.7 billion and became a historic record-breaking phenomenon. Even their bizarre 2026 movie Hoppers crushed it. It made hundreds of millions of dollars. And I watched that movie recently with my kids, one of the first movies I saw in theaters with my kids. And I thought it was great. Listen, Pixar survived the brutal streaming exile. They survived the vicious corporate sabotage. The animation studio isn't dead at all. They successfully evolved for the next generation. We just have to accept one hard truth. Our childhood is officially over. It's completely okay to miss the old Pixar. Those golden era movies literally raised us. They are safely locked away in history forever, and no one can ever take them away from us. But we can't expect the studio to stay frozen in time. They have a brand new job to do now. They're busy helping a new generation survive, and they're teaching kids how to process massive anxiety. They're showing them how to accept their messy minds. That's actually a beautiful thing. We just have to let the ghosts go. Now, I promised you guys something special at the start of this, so we're gonna close this out a little differently. Both my sons found out recently that I have a YouTube channel, and they were adamant that they wanted to do some voices for the end of this video. So I said, all right, fine. You guys can create your own characters and we will put them in the end of the video. I appreciate you all if you've been watching for the first 3-4 videos. Stay crispy. Take it away, buddy, number 1.
I'd like to introduce you to my little nephews, bro.
Hey there, my name's William. You can call me Gilliam. So, I am 5 years old. I like doing stuff, but mostly I just sit around. But I hope you did so good that I like it so much. Then, my uncle came, and I really, really like him. And he's so good he's buffer than you. Hey, my name's Charlie. And I think I would like the things that I get, but, well, I have a snack for you. Do you want to eat them?
What if the absolute worst thing a creative studio can do is make a flawless masterpiece? What if a 15-year run of pure cinematic genius was actually a beautifully disguised death sentence? Imagine sitting inside a dark Burbank screening room. It's November 19th, 1993. A rough black and white storyboard reel begins to roll across the monitor. The characters on screen, they don't look like childhood heroes. They look like actors in a dark, gritty psychological thriller. A lanky, hollow-eyed cowboy stands over a wooden bed frame. He's screaming at a delusional space voyager with pure, unhinged malice. The script doesn't call for a funny cartoon accident. The cowboy slowly measures the distance to the open window. He lunges forward and violently shoves the space ranger into the dark void outside. Then he turns around to face the remaining plastic toys, and he mocks their terror with a sinister smile on his face. The room goes dead silent. It is a visceral, deeply unsettling distortion of childhood innocence. The executives sitting in the dark are visibly shaken by the raw hostility. Roy Disney stands up immediately and shuts the entire production down. This wasn't a clip from an indie thriller. This was the first rough cut of Toy Story. That screening was later infamously dubbed Black Friday by the team. And it put the creators exactly 14 days away from absolute annihilation. You see, in 1993, Pixar wasn't a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut. It was a failing, bleeding tech company. Their computer hardware division had completely tanked. They were hemorrhaging cash, and Steve Jobs was actively trying to cut his losses by selling the entire studio to Microsoft. Pixar's absolute final heartbeat, it was a $26 million deal with Disney to produce Toy Story. And if that deal fell through, the studio was dead. And because the Disney executives were so appalled by how much of a sociopathic bully Woody was, they prepared to pull the plug and cancel the entire project. If they walked away, Pixar would undoubtedly go bankrupt. The studio would vanish, every single animator would be out of work, and the most memorable decade of studio animation in human history would have been permanently buried right there in Burbank. Instead, Disney gave John Lasseter and his team one final ultimatum. You have 2 weeks to salvage the film. Change Woody from a sociopathic bully into a scared, endearing character, or we're pulling the plug. So rather than giving up, John Lasseter and his desperate team fought for survival. They locked themselves in a room, completely overhauled the script, and rewrote Woody's entire personality under an absolute pressure cooker. 14 days later, they presented the rewritten, emotionally resonant reels. Disney was blown away. They resumed the funding, and they saved Pixar from shuttering. This is the hidden engine behind the stories that stay with us forever. Great stories don't come from safe, focus-tested corporate workflows. Every single golden age masterpiece you grew up with began as a fundamentally broken idea. They captured our hearts by tearing those broken ideas apart on a surgical cutting room floor and fixing them under intense pressure. The result was an unreplicable 15-year streak of perfection. 11 straight box office hits that completely defined our childhoods. But treating a total statistical miracle as your normal baseline, well, that's incredibly dangerous. Because when your standard routine requires an impossible historical miracle, normal survival starts to look like a tragedy. The studio didn't lose its soul through simple corporate greed. The truth hidden behind the brand logo is far more devastating. They were systematically murdered by the brutal perfection of their own golden age. Pixar went on an absolute, undisputed generational run. We're talking about more than 130 major awards, Oscars, Golden Globes, and yes, even multiple Grammys. I mean, just look at the sheer velocity of this era on the screen right now. Toy Story, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up. I mean, come on. They didn't just compete with other animation studios, they actually became the defining metric for the entire medium. And I'm not the only one who feels this way. And listen, I am completely jaded when it comes to this brand. Because when Toy Story originally came out, I was a kid just like Andy. And when Andy finally packed his bags and went away to college, yeah, so did I. I was stepping onto a college campus at that exact same time. Let's dig into the inner workings and find out what made it so great. In 1995, director Pete Docter walked up to a completely blank whiteboard. He sketched out a fragile skeletal premise titled simply, Monsters. On paper, it looked like a safe cartoon for kids about creatures in closets. But the early screenplay draft was very different than that. The main character wasn't a charismatic corporate mascot. He was a scrawny, isolated 30-year-old monster facing intense inadequacy. He worked in a mind-numbing industrial job that he completely hated. He was constantly haunted by a bizarre late-night dream, or more nightmare. A live TV broadcast was exposing his worst professional failures to the entire world. This script was basically a clinical dissection of a brutal midlife crisis. It was a developer's real imposter syndrome put right onto a digital asset. There weren't any cute toddlers, there wasn't any corporate energy pipelines in sight. The concept structurally was broken because it just left audiences depressed. Test viewers didn't feel childlike wonder, they felt the weight of adulthood obsolescence. The story completely lacked an emotional engine that would make the digital geometry feel grounded. So Pete Docter and his team took everything they had apart. They replaced the adult midlife crisis with a fragile 2-year-old child named Boo. They built a physics engine called FITS, which calculated over 2 million individual fur collisions, and that's how Sully looks so fuzzy. This technological breakthrough allowed the digital asset to look physically tactile. But the real magic was a deeply hidden biological hack. You see, by putting a tiny, fragile human baby like Boo right next to a massive monster like Sully, they forced our brain chemistry to bypass all digital skepticism. Your brain instantly triggers a protective reflex when you see a giant protect an infant. Because you aren't just watching blue fur move across the screen, you're subconsciously experiencing a primitive feeling of safety rooted in childhood. I remember sitting down the first time watching this movie when I was a kid. When you think about the absolute Mount Rushmore of memorable voice acting, there's probably certain names that flash to your mind. Robin Williams as the genie, Mel Blanc as Bugs Bunny, James Earl Jones as Darth Vader, and yeah, Tom Hanks as Woody. But you know who else belongs right beside them? John Goodman as Sully and Billy Crystal as Mike Wazowski. Those castings are so memorable. And come on, Monsters, Inc. is easily one of the most hilariously quotable movies ever made. You have the total chaos of 2319, the emergency, which was actually a brilliant inside joke pointing right back to the studio's own address. You have Roz sitting at her desk with her raspy voice.
Wazowski, you didn't file your paperwork last night.
Oh, that darn paperwork. Wouldn't it be easier if it all just blew away?
Don't let it happen again.
You got Mike frantically making up a fake musical on the spot.
Yeah, put that thing back where it came from, or so help me. So help me, so help me.
John Goodman and Billy Crystal fit Sully and Mike so perfectly that you completely forget you're looking at digital geometry. Their real-world comedic chemistry is totally unmatched in my opinion. And at that age, you aren't thinking about computational physics or mechanical pipelines. You're just laughing. You're completely brought into this wonderful, incredible world. But then Pixar completely pulls the rug out from under you. Cause Sully gets this fierce protective instinct for Boo, and in that final scene, when he has to close the closet door and say goodbye to her, I distinctly remember getting this massive lump in my throat. When I was younger, I didn't really understand how a movie that made me laugh so hard could turn around and then break my heart 5 minutes later. The ultimate meaning of that ending is something we rarely talk about. It's a heartbreaking essay on the agonizing process of letting go. The final scene doesn't end with a victory lap. It ends with Boo's hand-carved wooden door shattered into splinters. It forces you to sit with the crushing reality of an unrepeatable memory. So when Sully looks into the dark closet and hears her say, "Kitty!" the film cuts to black before showing you her face. Early Pixar forced a computer simulation to bleed human vulnerability. They used a mechanical pipeline to pull this unnameable ache out of us, and they were about to use that exact same surgical precision on an entire ocean. Look at how Andrew Stanton's historic 2003 oceanic movie evolved. Originally, Finding Nemo was built entirely around fragmented flashbacks. Stanton wanted to hide a violent aquatic ambush within scattered memories. Yeah, the Barracuda scene. But if you look at this, you'll see there's a major psychological flaw in that initial structure. Early test audiences, they found the main character, Marlin, completely suffocating, totally unlikable. If you watch the movie, you probably understand why people could feel that way. Yeah, he's an irritatingly anxious clownfish, and he smothers his only son, Nemo. But because the viewers lacked immediate context for his hyper-vigilant panic, the emotional side of the father's mind was broken on paper. So to save this project, Andrew Stanton performed narrative surgery. He ripped the horrific attack of the Barracuda out of the middle of the timeline. He placed that Barracuda slaughter right in the first 3 minutes of the movie. Suddenly, our primitive survival instincts are hijacked. You go from happy-go-lucky, look at us, we're starting a family, straight into sheer horror. This structural rewrite works because of how our brains are wired. Witnessing an immediate devastating loss forces your brain to validate subsequent irrational behavior. Things that you did in the past, they feel validating. You feel the agonizing grief of a father. You don't just see a digital cartoon on an orange fish. You experience localized anxiety. This is why the final product carries such an unburied, haunting feeling. It's a deep look at how terrifying it is to deal with parental codependency. The heaviest truth it leaves behind is the suffocating weight of an inescapable reality. Loving another fragile human being means and requires you to accept your own vulnerability.
Thank goodness.
Dad, I don't hate you.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry.
Listen, I'm 36 at this point. I have 2 kids. I rewatched this movie recently, and actually I rewatched The Lion King 2. Similar experiences. My perspective on these movies is entirely different now than it was when I was younger. When I was a kid, I saw myself in Nemo. I saw myself wanting to adventure and see what the world had to offer. But as a parent, I see myself completely in Marlin. I'm terrified of being overly protective, but I have to make sure the kids who rely on me don't get into trouble in a way I can't fix. So the sheer panic that Marlin deals with, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And then Marlin probably feels validated in his feelings because when Nemo gets taken, he says, "See, I knew it all along." Early Pixar didn't simply build comfortable children's stories with happy corporate resolutions. They engineered emotional mirrors that exposed the hidden vulnerabilities inside our own biology. And they were about to scale this exact psychological warfare on a planetary level. Look at the terrifying audacity of the late 2000s slate. The studio greenlit 2 consecutive experiments that should have completely bankrupted them. The first was a 2008 post-apocalyptic movie starring a silent trash compacting machine named WALL-E. Yeah, it sounds ridiculous on paper, doesn't it? Originally, the screenplay was a highly conventional sci-fi comedy. WALL-E was supposed to discover an alien race and spark a massive space war, but the narrative flaw of this corporate concept soon came to light. It felt incredibly hollow, weightless, and entirely detached from actual human reality. It felt like they were just chasing standard end-of-the-world movies. I mean, post-apocalyptic was a big thing at this time. It relied completely on cheap verbal jokes rather than visual truth. To save the project, Andrew Stanton threw out the cosmic war script entirely, and he engineered a radical mutation, 30 consecutive minutes of non-verbal silence. Think about that in perspective. There are massive chunks of time in WALL-E where not a single word is spoken, but yet they're still able to articulate such intense emotions, in robots of all things. Look at this scene as a great example. Early in the movie, WALL-E goes back to his truck with Eva. He puts his new lenses on, and he stands there sort of like, "Look at me!" His hands are in the air, he's standing dead still, and you're like, what's happening? And then suddenly, weet, his eyes start to twitch. It teaches you as a viewer, oh, this is how he reboots, this is how he fixes himself when he's damaged. And then they use this to absolutely wreck us at the end of the movie. Because when WALL-E's severely damaged at the end, after Eva puts him back together and all his new parts are on, you've already been trained. You're sitting there saying, please reboot, please reboot. It's an absolute masterclass at hijacking your emotions without saying anything. That feeling of isolation was instantly duplicated in Pete Docter's 2009 masterpiece, Up. The original pitch focused on a whimsical adventure about a magical floating house. But the structure was flawed because it lacked a devastating emotional anchor. So the creators executed a brutal 4-minute opening sequence without a single line of dialogue. Similarly to what we just talked about with WALL-E, they forced a blockbuster kids cartoon to chart the lifetime progression of Carl and Ellie Fredrickson.
Ever in my life.
We watched their entire life unfold through marriage, medical miscarriage, and mortality. It targets our deepest trauma through raw visuals. And then watching a bright yellow balloon fade inside a sterile hospital room, it just breaks your heart. Before the movie has even begun, you're already invested. Your brain reacts intensely when you witness the quiet aftermath of a shared life ending. The deeper meaning behind the end result is a beautiful look at human legacy. We think we're crying at an animated old man escaping his quiet suburban home, when in reality, we're confronting Carl's deepest fear, outliving Ellie, the person he loves. Early Pixar systematically forced cold digital art to contain the heaviest feelings of human existence. They weaponized our own vulnerabilities to establish an impossible benchmark of cinematic perfection. And that hyper-focused artistic warfare was about to collide directly with corporate metrics. Look at the shifting of power following a massive 2006 corporate acquisition. The parent corporation, Disney, purchased Pixar for an unprecedented $7.4 billion. On paper, the transaction was supposed to maximize global distribution. The blueprint was marketed as a seamless union to solidify a total monopoly on childhood imagination. But look at the destruction this caused to the creative workflow. It systematically attempted to turn a wild group of director-led passion projects into a corporate routine. This corporate world wanted steady quarterly profits. They didn't want high-stakes artistic risks. The emotional depth of the development pipeline was immediately commercialized. To secure consistent margins, the studio slate shifted heavily to production by numbers. They weaponized a peer review system which was simply known as the Brain Trust. In the golden era, this review board succeeded specifically because it possessed zero executive power. John Lasseter, Brad Bird, and Andrew Stanton operated entirely on candor. They forced directors to locate their own raw truths. But the corporate hierarchy slowly transformed these meetings into multi-tier focus groups. Original risky screenplays like Newt were permanently canceled in early pre-production, and safe franchise sequel pipelines like Cars 2 were rapidly greenlit to feed global toy divisions. The technical pipeline was highly optimized for efficiency and extreme risk mitigation. Modern setups are completely built to limit human and financial exposure, so they swapped gut instinct for a safe, focus-tested formula. Think about the depressing realization that hits when you notice a story's soul has completely vanished. Your brain can just tell when a story is manufactured by a committee instead of driven by human obsession. It completely closes off your willingness to connect on a biological level. You don't just see a flat, pristine digital surface on the screen, you subconsciously register an absolute lack of creative danger or urgency. There's something about it you just can't connect with. The ultimate meaning of this shift is a quiet reminder. You cannot automate a miracle. The studio didn't lose its dominance through a simple lack of budget or talent. The truth hidden beneath the modern streaming platforms is far more devastating. They built an industrial machine that permanently closed off the possibility of another miracle ever happening, and instead they engineered a safe corporate prison out of an unrepeatable golden age. Look back one final time at the legendary 15-year stretch of cinema. We spent our childhood sitting in the dark, weeping at plastic toys, clownfish, and trash-compacting robots. We assumed a corporate logo was a guarantee of emotional authenticity. The lamp bouncing on the letter I in Pixar, it became synonymous with our core memories. But the reality hidden beneath the nostalgia is beautifully tragic. That historic run of 11 consecutive masterpieces was a statistical miracle. It was a volatile collision of a technological Wild West and raw human desperation, of a studio that was constantly on the brink of bankruptcy, but still chose to pump out great ideas. The early creators didn't give us childhood memories by playing things safe. They gave it to us by bleeding their own real flaws onto the monitor. They set an impossible benchmark of historical perfection that could never be sustained. Listen, modern Hollywood didn't ruin the studio we once loved. They simply tried to run a standard assembly line inside a lightning storm. The perfection of the 2000s did not save the company. Unfortunately, it was the exact weapon that systematically executed their future. But not in the traditional way you might think. Click on the next video appearing on your screen right now. I'm going to map out exactly how the brutal golden age baseline meant that every single piece of original modern IP was completely doomed from the start, or at the very least, they had a much tougher hill to climb. The credits rolled, but the feeling stayed. Stay crispy. Hollywood has gotten way too comfortable. Actors stand in air-conditioned studios pretending to be terrified of a tennis ball on a stick. Now, imagine freezing salt water filling your lungs. Imagine being trapped in a dark cave with a 2-ton steel animatronic. There is no digital safety net, no CGI artist to fix it later. The exhaustion is real. The terror is real. This is the physical hell Christopher Nolan demanded for the Odyssey. And yet, the internet is furious.
No! God, please, no! No!
They're demanding the shiny CGI magic we've been spoon-fed for a decade. But that lack of magic is exactly why I'm excited. Nolan isn't ruining a classic myth. He's exposing the brutal clinical reality of combat trauma. He's building a psychological horror. And if you want to know exactly how punishing this production actually was, just listen to the warning Nolan gave his lead actor before the cameras even rolled.
First meeting I had with him, at the end of the meeting, he said, this movie's gonna be hard. I kind of looked at him like, I've made, 100 movies or whatever. I looked at him like, yeah, I know. And he looked at me and went, no, this movie's gonna be really hard.
Hollywood actors are usually incredibly protective of their personal brands. They demand finished scripts, they want exact storyboards, and really detailed character breakdowns. They want to know exactly and precisely how many close-ups their contract guarantees. But Christopher Nolan operates with an entirely different level of artistic authority. When he decided to write his dark, clinical adaptation of The Odyssey, he called Matt Damon.
He offered me the central part, and I think I said yes before I knew what we were doing.
Nolan didn't send an executive summary or a partial treatment to his agency. He didn't even tell Damon what the film was actually about. Well, not at first, at least.
He said, no, let me pitch you. And I said, okay, let me hear the pitch. He said, it's a 2-word pitch. I said, okay, and he said, The Odyssey.
Matt Damon accepted the lead role right there on the phone.
If the director is that good, you could actually go without a script and you're going to be all right.
That unconditional trust should tell you everything about Nolan's reputation. Actors don't throw away their leverage for a standard blockbuster paycheck. They do it because they know Christopher Nolan treats actors like physical weight and not pixels. He isn't casting Damon to look heroic on a shiny promotional poster. He's casting him to play a deeply fractured, hyper-vigilant military veteran. The exact type of broken soldier Homer described 3,000 years ago. And the internet is currently losing its mind over these choices. Millions of cultural warriors are leaving angry comments under the trailer. They're demanding a glossy golden hour spectacle like Troy from 2004. They want digital magic that they've been trained to consume for their whole lives. But these vocal critics, they don't get the point of this adaptation. The lack of shiny digital magic isn't an accident. It's the film's greatest psychological weapon. Christopher Nolan just made nearly $1 billion on a 3-hour historical biopic. The massive success of Oppenheimer gave him the ultimate Hollywood blank check, full carte blanche. He used it to assemble an absolute powerhouse cast. Matt Damon stars as a deeply traumatized Odysseus. Anne Hathaway plays his fiercely intelligent and besieged wife Penelope. Then there's Tom Holland, Zendaya, Lupita Nyong'o, Robert Pattinson, John Bernthal. Maybe you've forgotten the story of the Odyssey from freshman year of high school. You need to know the actual plot to understand these choices. This isn't a fun, swashbuckling pirate adventure.
We have our headache.
Odysseus is trapped at sea for 10 years after a brutal war. His wife and son are under literal economic siege in their own home. Hostile suitors are invading their house and draining their ancestral wealth. It's a grim story about a profoundly fractured family.
Bro, where's the CGI Cyclops boss fight? Where's the slow-mo Brad Pitt cameo? We need Michael Bay in here. He knows what he's doing.
Sit down, Shilliam. But Shilliam's voicing what a lot of people online are actually upset about. The casting doesn't match the heroes in their head. When people imagine Achilles, they picture a shredded Brad Pitt from Troy. They imagine an invincible, hyper-masculine warrior who's chasing eternal glory. But guys, that is the Achilles of the Iliad. In the Odyssey, Odysseus meets Achilles in the underworld. He encounters a devastated, regretful ghost. This is at the point where Achilles realizes dying for eternal glory was a terrible mistake, and he explicitly states he would rather be a living, dirt-poor slave than a dead king. Nolan isn't casting for a flashy movie poster. He's casting for the emotional weight of that underground scene. He's prioritizing the crushing vulnerability of a broken soldier over a comfortable feeling of nostalgia. But a lot of voices online want a visually comfortable fairy tale, but they're ignoring the most jarring part of the trailer. The biggest online meltdown isn't about how these characters look, it's about how they speak.
Ithaca's king is coming back.
No, he's not.
When the full trailer finally dropped, social media melted down over the voices. Traditionally British-speaking actors like Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson are using natural American accents. The dialogue is aggressively modern. At one point, Pattinson mocks Telemachus for missing his daddy.
They're pining for a daddy. You didn't even know.
Critics argued this choice destroys the cinematic immersion. They expect a formal theatrical British accent of a standard period piece. I mean, Hollywood has trained us to expect that exact sound over the last 70 years. But this expectation is a historic illusion because we often forget a very basic fact about the Odyssey. It was not written in English. It's a 3,000-year-old poem written in ancient Greek. So every English version you've ever read is a modern interpretation. That means somebody had to literally translate those ancient words into our own language. And for centuries, older academics translated Homer into flowery Victorian poetry. So they chose fancy, whimsical words to make it sound grander than it actually was. They turned the story into a museum exhibit. But in 2017, a classicist named Emily Wilson published a brand new translation. She looked at the exact same ancient Greek text, and she completely stripped away the romanticized Shakespearean gloss that had always been overwritten on it. Wilson realized forcing these characters to sound like British royalty kind of ruins the story. So she translated the very first line of the epic with raw simplicity. She didn't introduce a glorious divine hero, she simply introduced Odysseus as a complicated man. She used very sharp, direct, and everyday language. The original Greek poem was fast-paced, violent, and it was pop culture of its time. It was oral entertainment meant to be understood by regular working-class people. So the furious outrage over Pattinson using the word daddy is historically misplaced, guys. Ancient Greek text actually contains the word papa. It translates directly to the intimate colloquial name, papa, or dad. Using a formal British accent creates a fake aristocratic distance. It acts as a psychological buffer between the audience and the actual trauma. By using modern colloquial American accents, Nolan takes away that safety net, so we can no longer hide behind the comforting illusion of ancient history. The arrogant, wealthy suitors that were invading Odysseus' home, they sound more like modern bullies to me. Insulated elites who never experienced the horrors of war. This forces us to face the characters as vulnerable human beings. It makes the domestic tragedy feel uncomfortably real. The absolute terror of that Trojan horse opening wasn't rendered on a computer. Look at the hardware that Nolan used to trap you in that dark box. He dropped a $250 million gamble on an ancient poem. Universal executives were probably expecting a standard weightless summer action movie. They wanted a smooth, glossy actor standing in a climate-controlled digital volume stage. But when you build an entire epic inside a digital void, reality dies. Actors spend weeks blinking at a tennis ball on a green stick. The physical weight of the human body becomes completely floaty. Nolan wanted the opposite. He wanted the crushing pressure of reality. He took a massive 15 by 70 millimeter IMAX analog camera out onto real open water. If you don't know why this matters, let's explain the physical engineering. An IMAX camera is an absolute beast of a mechanical violence. It horizontally tears massive strips of 70 millimeter celluloid film at huge speeds. The internal gears spin so hard, it literally sounds like an open diesel motor. So for years, directors only used IMAX for silent landscapes or distant explosions because the sound wouldn't allow them to do anything else.
For intimate scenes, for instance, if we were going to shoot this scene, that would have been impossible in IMAX up until, a year ago.
Camera's too loud.
Camera's just much too loud.
So Nolan's engineering team built a massive soundproof casing for the camera. The crew on set literally called this enclosure the mechanical coffin. It was heavy, airtight, and built to swallow the acoustic roar of the gears. This coffin made the camera nearly double its original weight. Moving this monolithic rig inside a cramped tilting wooden ship was pure misery. Because of the sheer physical heat inside that coffin, the film could warp. They could only run the camera for a couple minutes at a time. So every single take was a high-stakes race against mechanical failure. But that extreme structural friction is exactly why the image feels so real. The actors, they're not faking the physical exhaustion under their eyes. These are reactions to a genuine mechanical monster staring in their immediate space. Surviving the physical war is only half the battle. Odysseus finally reaches the shores of Ithaca. The massive storms and physical monsters are completely behind him. Remember exactly why this man left home in the first place. If you didn't know, he didn't want to fight in the Trojan War. He had a fiercely intelligent wife and a newborn baby at the time. King Agamemnon came to draft him, and Odysseus, he did something sort of brilliant. He tried to fake his own insanity. He hitched an ox and a donkey to his plow. He sowed his own fields with physical salt. He tried to make it look like he was a broken, useless madman so that Agamemnon wouldn't draft him. But Agamemnon and his generals had another idea. They took the infant's son, Telemachus, and they threw the baby directly in the dirt before the heavy iron plow blade. Odysseus had a choice. Do I sacrifice my son so I don't have to go to war, or do I save him, knowing that my next 10 years of my life could be gone? Odysseus instantly swerved to save his son's life. He proved his sanity, but he doomed himself in the process. He was violently ripped away to fight a 10-year siege against Troy. That grinding, horrific bloodbath started because a prince ran off with a queen. Seriously, Odysseus didn't care about a Spartan king's wounded pride. He spent 10 years surviving a nightmare he never even wanted to enter, and then he tried to sail back home across the Mediterranean Sea. It was a standard trip that should have taken a few weeks, but along the way, he blinded a cannibalistic Cyclops. That Cyclops happened to be the son of Poseidon, the god of the sea. Poseidon actively cursed the ocean to ensure Odysseus could never return. For the next decade, Odysseus fought targeted, ship-shattering storms. He was shipwrecked, held hostage, he was forced to watch all of his men die. He spent 10 years fighting an entire ocean just to get back to his own front door. In total, he had been gone for 20 agonizing years. The infant he swerved to save grew into a man who doesn't even know his own father's face. His wife Penelope had been living under a psychological siege for 2 decades. She'd been waiting for a ghost while hostile men try to steal her home. When Odysseus finally walks through his own front door, it's not a happy ending. His house is infested with arrogant, insulated enemies. This is the true tragedy of the entire epic. The hardest part is returning to a home that's moved on without you, 20 years. When Odysseus finally draws his bow in that great hall, it's no superhero victory lap. It's a paranoid veteran violently securing his perimeter. The story was never supposed to be romanticized. It was never supposed to be a superhuman epic. Christopher Nolan didn't ruin this 3,000-year-old myth. He just stripped away the shiny Hollywood filter and exposed the brutal clinical reality of combat trauma. He showed us the psychological horror mainstream studios are terrified to touch. If you think about some of the best war movies you've ever seen, a lot of them dive into how psychologically damaging it is for the people who were involved. The credits rolled, but the feeling stayed. Stay crispy.
Well, Harry Potter, this is where you go off on your own.
Where do I go, broski? This is just a normal train station.
You'll need to find platform 6-7, then take the Maybach Express to Dripwarts. Come along now.
While HBO spent $50 million recreating Hogwarts, a single person with a laptop made it magical again. Studio executives want to reboot the entire wizarding world for television. That decision means 10 years of brand new child actors. It requires 10 years of massive physical set constructions and 10 years of suits trying to bottle up our nostalgia. It's the ultimate Hollywood remake dilemma. Legacy studios are completely terrified of original ideas, so they endlessly recycle our childhoods for a guaranteed profit. On March 25th, 2026, they dropped the first official teaser trailer.
The next time I see you will be in Hogwarts.
The initial mainstream hype was absolutely undeniable. That video ultimately racked up 277 million organic views in just 48 hours. It became the single most watched trailer in HBO streaming history. But then you look at the actual audience response, and you question, Are they throwing $5.6 billion directly into a furnace? Why do I say that? Because fans hammered that promotional video with over 300,000 dislikes against a microscopic 26,000 likes. The global audience violently rejected the footage. People called the teaser bleak, soulless, and completely unnecessary. So why did a billion-dollar studio fail so spectacularly? The fundamental problem is baked into how Hollywood makes movies today. Look closely at the digital lighting and the texture. HBO relies heavily on aggressive digital color grading. Studio colorists wash everything in a dark teal and orange filter. That specific grading palette strips the genuine warmth right out of Hogwarts. The studio delivered a cold corporate drama when all the fans really wanted was magic. To understand why this failed, we need to go back in time.
Dude, man, hold up. Bro, I got this. We're gonna go back to dino times, man. Because nobody cares about reboots. Dinos get clicks, reboots get...
Whoa. Oh, too far, man. Hey, first off, who in the world are you? And secondly, what do you think you're doing? This is my video.
Chill out, Brocahontas. I'm Lord Shilliam von Trust Fund IV, but my homies just call me Shill.
Yeah, you realize the irony in your name, right? Oh, wait, please don't tell me.
That's right, bro. I found this awesome website called Audible. You'll never believe this. You don't even have to read anymore, man. You could just pump the sound waves into your brain meat while you're ripping curls. And they have this free trial.
Oh, wait. Oh, it's free? Really? Wow, that's really cool of you. When you said your name was Shill, I was a little worried.
Listen, bro. Nobody cares about the free trial. We want everyone to sign up for the Premium Plus account. That's where the bag is.
You know what? Yeah, no, yeah, that's on me. I'm sorry, everybody. I should have known better. Anyways, if you are interested, no strings attached, free trial, click the link at the top of the description or the pinned comment. Cancel anytime, whatever you want. If you want to reminisce about good old days, why not grab yourself some classics? No. Where was I? Oh, yes. The original books and movies came out. It was not just media. It defined an entire childhood lifestyle.
Well, because I think a lot of people like fantasy and like magic.
I remember being in 3rd grade when the Sorcerer's Stone book came out. During homeroom, 10 out of 30 kids always had their noses in the book. It was absolute collective lunacy on the playground. If you did not know the wizarding world, you were an outcast. And I desperately wanted to fit in with the cool kids, so I did something highly shameful. I literally faked reading the books just to survive recess. I tried to read them, I mean, don't get me wrong, but what ultimately happened is I ended up just staring at the pages without digesting a single word. Until I was at a friend's house one night and I got completely outed. Someone suspected that I wasn't really reading the books and casually asked me what a muggle was, and I froze up. I didn't do it on purpose. I mean, that was just the sheer cultural gravity that this franchise had for our generation. It was a defining era of cozy robes, glowing wands, and pure innocence. But after the main movies ended, media executives got incredibly greedy. Studios tried to milk the remaining franchise with the Fantastic Beasts movies, but those prequel movies were messy, confusing, and narratively, they were just exhausting. Fans were already burnt out long before this new HBO reboot was ever announced.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad!
And when I say the internet was burnt out, no, we're not touching on the J.K. Rowling stuff. No, we're not even going...
Bro, look at these spicy headlines, bro. Massive views.
Shilliam, quit hijacking the script. While HBO executives panicked over focus groups, the internet started a digital rebellion. A solitary creator bypassed the entire studio system using just a cheap laptop. He goes by the username Demon Flying Fox. What he did is he fed descriptive prompts into consumer artificial intelligence to mash up Hogwarts innocence with high-end Balenciaga fashion. Those results dropped in early 2023 and fundamentally broke the internet. We watched a brooding Hagrid strut down our digital runway. delivering the deadpan line,
"You're a Balenciaga, Harry."
It was completely unhinged, but millions of people couldn't look away from it. And by early 2026, the underlying generative technology had already escalated further into cinematic masterpieces. Characters now possessed perfect lip syncing, and they lived inside highly detailed digital environments. So the question becomes, why does a janky AI meme look more magical than a billion-dollar show? Well, mechanism depth is required here to understand visual perception. Traditional CGI visual effects build environments using hard mathematical polygons. Animators rely on rigid 3D meshes and strict physics calculations. Computer animations use mathematical shortcuts to simulate complex reality. And your subconscious brain immediately detects those underlying shortcuts. So you instantly can feel that the rendered digital world is counterfeit and it's just too clean, it's too sterile. But generative AI does not calculate hard, rigid physics. Instead, it synthesizes media using a process called pixel diffusion. Maybe I'm too out here. Let me explain pixel diffusion so a 5-year-old can understand it. Imagine taking millions of blurry childhood photographs. You throw them all into a giant magic blender, and you end up pouring out a glowing, beautiful, dreamlike painting. Essentially, the AI learns real textures and authentic lighting directly from actual source photos and videos. I think this is probably the main reason why artists are so upset with AI use in the first place. They feel like their work is being stolen and they're not being credited for it. Anyway, the resulting output looks structurally identical to a human dream. That's the interesting part. Characters blink at a strange, highly irregular tempo, backgrounds melt and shifts slightly in the visual periphery, and the synthesized lighting casts an impossible, ethereal glow. Human nostalgia itself operates on this exact same neurological frequency. Our childhood memories are never perfect 4K digital renderings. They're often just hazy, emotionally distorted, deeply fragmented memories. So seeing this machine hallucination feels exactly like looking at one of our own faded memories. It feels infinitely more authentic than HBO's plain and physical, sterile sets. This grassroots digital rebellion reached its absolute peak with Harry Potter Drip.
That's Harry Potter! Are you really Harry Potter, my G?
None of that, broski. We're all here on the Maybach Express for one reason and one reason only, and that's to go to Dripwatch, the School of Drip.
In the original story, these kids were outcasts living in tiny cupboards, wearing baggy robes and ugly hand-me-down sweaters. But the internet decided to give them a massive, permanent digital upgrade. We're not talking about simple wizard robes anymore. We're talking about supreme, untouchable confidence. Digital creators dress the main cast in designer streetwear that goes so hard. And Dobby, in the meantime, in a pimped-out car, somehow it seems like this guy has absolute soul. Drip represents absolute swagger, so seeing our beloved outcasts in luxury clothing feels incredibly cathartic, because it's a brilliant psychological mashup. It's something we call a cognitive collision. What you do is you take the ultimate symbol of pure childhood sincerity and you forcefully inject it with a cynical, hyper-capitalist swagger.
Is that Harry Potter? They say you are the boy who dripped, are you not, broski?
They say you are the bro who dripped. Are you not, broski?
Oh, dear God. I should have known better. What now, Shilliam?
Like, take my money, bro. This is fire.
Okay, I can't do this. Moving on. But more importantly, it is the fans flexing directly on the studios. It offers a visual representation of taking control over your own narrative. Fans used a viral meme to strip the franchise of its corporate sanctity. We bypassed traditional copyright gatekeepers entirely in the process. We rebuilt the visual world from our own aesthetic experimentations, and the audience had successfully seized the means of cultural production. We realized we don't need corporate permission to play in this sandbox. Legacy media executives are absolutely terrified of this raw grassroots energy, because you can't manufacture underground culture inside a boardroom. So when Warner Brothers Discovery realized they were losing the culture war, they absolutely panicked. Studios tried to weaponize their $1.3 billion physical set. They paraded internet influencers around the physical studio sets, and they pushed them until the influencers literally cried on camera for PR. It just reeked like a desperate attempt to prove that physical craftsmanship still mattered. But a physical set can't compete with an authentic internet revolution. So the corporate giant resorted to aggressive legal warfare instead. Go figure. Can't win with them? Sue them. Studios hit major AI generation platforms with massive copyright lawsuits.
Warner Brothers just sued Midjourney for generating images of its copyrighted characters.
Legacy studio executives want to maintain a strict monopoly over our shared myths. But a fascinating experiment proved that corporate mandates are entirely useless. Users fed the entire text of the original books into an AI model, but they secretly injected fake spells into the prompt instructions. The AI consistently ignored the fake spells entirely. It immediately rejected the new boardroom safe instructions. It, like us, recognized the magic of the original work. So it defaulted to its earliest training memories just like our brains would. It shows us how human nostalgia functions, honestly, because you can't force a passionate fandom to accept a sterilized corporate reboot. We will always cling stubbornly to the deep roots of our original experiences. The official HBO series tried to forcefully overwrite a sacred legacy, and the internet successfully defended against it. The era of the corporate gatekeeper is completely collapsing. We used to just consume whatever Hollywood handed down to us, but now we are actively seizing the means of cultural production. A massive studio tried to sell us a corporate memory, so the Weirdos and Outcasts built their own sandbox instead. We proved that a story doesn't belong to the copyright holders. It belongs to the people who lived inside it. The kids who hid under the covers with a flashlight late at night, the ones who cosplayed their favorite characters at the events around town, the ones who faked reading comprehension just to survive recess. Listen, AI diffusion models did not just give Dobby a pimped out car. They actually gave us permission to take our childhoods back.
But they'll never take our freedom!
And in the process, author our own magic. The credits rolled, but the feeling stayed. Stay crispy.